Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I inherited my phone number from my grandmother when she passed away 3 years ago. She had this number for over 2 decades, and it held sentimental value since it was how I always reached her growing up. I wanted to keep that connection to her alive, even though it meant dealing with occasional wrong numbers from her old contacts. What I didn't expect was the absolute nightmare that would unfold because of it. It started about a year ago. The first few calls seemed innocent enough. A contractor called asking if I was Mrs. Johnson. When I said no and that it was a wrong number, they insisted they had the right number, 5550123, and asked if I lived at 742 Maple Street. I explained that wasn't my address and repeated that I wasn't Mrs. Johnson. They kept pushing, saying Mrs. Johnson had given them this number for a solar panel installation quote. I told them I wasn't her and asked them to remove my number from their list. They just hung up without saying anything else. The calls kept coming. Different contractors, same story. Sometimes 3 or 4 calls a day. Solar panels, landscaping, roof repairs, driveway paving, you name it. They were selling it. I tried everything. Being polite didn't work. Being firm didn't work. The do not call registry didn't work. Some of them even got aggressive about it. One memorable exchange happened when a contractor called asking for Mrs. Johnson again. When I explained that they had repeatedly called the wrong number and asked them to stop, they got hostile. They snapped at me, saying I was the one who had given them the number and demanded to know why they should stop calling when I had requested their services. I protested that I had never requested anything and didn't even own property. They dismissively told me to expect more calls and hung up on me. After a year of this harassment, something in me snapped. I decided if they wouldn't listen to reason, I'd make them waste their time like they'd wasted mine. My first attempt at revenge was with a driveway contractor. When they called asking for Mrs. Johnson, I said yes. They proceeded to ask about my request for a driveway estimate at 742 Maple Street, and I played along, agreeing that my driveway needed lots of work. They offered an appointment for that afternoon at 4:30, which I eagerly accepted. At 4:45, they called back saying they'd been waiting outside the house for 15 minutes. I apologized and made up an excuse about running to the store, promising to be there in 10 minutes. They agreed to wait. 20 minutes later, they called again asking where I was. I fed them another excuse about long lines at the store and asked for 10 more minutes. When they complained about my unprofessionalism, I turned it back on them, pointing out how unprofessional it was to harass someone for a year with unwanted calls after repeatedly being told they had the wrong number. After a long pause, I revealed that I wasn't Mrs. Johnson and never had been, suggesting they should listen next time someone tells them they've got the wrong number. Their response was just spluttering and cursing, but the best part was that they never called again. This became my new strategy. Every time they called, I'd play along, set up appointments during rush hour, and waste their time. Some companies caught on quickly and stopped calling. Others took a few appointments before they got the message. My favorite was the solar panel company that had been the most persistent and rudest over the past year. I set up 3 different appointments with them, each time having their representatives wait longer than the last. On the 3rd no-show, when they called complaining about waiting 45 minutes, I finally revealed my identity. I told them what was really unacceptable was their company calling me multiple times a week for a year, ignoring my requests to stop and treating me like I was the problem when I told them they had the wrong number. They were shocked to learn I wasn't Mrs. Johnson, and I asked them how it felt to have their time wasted, just like they've been doing to me for the past year. After a moment of silence, they promised to permanently remove my number from their system. I simply told them that was all I had ever wanted. The calls have dropped significantly since I started my campaign of peaceful revenge. The few new companies that do call quickly remove my number when I explain the situation. Sometimes I miss the opportunity to waste their time, but I suppose that's the price of victory. My grandmother would probably disapprove of my methods, but I like to think she'd understand. I've been a boxing enthusiast my whole life. Started training when I was just 12. Competed professionally for nearly a decade before retiring to focus on my family. These days, I mostly teach self-defense classes at the local gym, helping people feel safer and more confident. Never thought those skills would come in handy during a family vacation, but life has a funny way of surprising you. My spouse and I had been planning this Caribbean trip for months. Our kids, 10 and 12, were beyond excited about their first scuba diving experience. We'd chosen a highly rated diving company that specialized in family sessions, making sure our children would be safe while exploring the underwater world. The morning started perfectly. The instructor gave us a thorough safety briefing explaining every piece of equipment and emergency procedure. That's when I first noticed her. A woman with that signature, "I want to speak to your manager" haircut, constantly interrupting the instructor with questions about how long we'd be allowed to stay underwater. She had 2 kids with her, probably around the same age as mine. During the briefing, they kept whining about wanting to stay underwater forever, and she kept promising them they'd get the longest possible experience. Right before we got into the water, I overheard something that made my blood run cold. Karen was telling her kids that if their oxygen got low, they should just go to my children and take their masks. She justified this by saying my kids were younger and didn't need as much time underwater anyway. When one of her kids expressed concern about making others mad, she dismissively told them that she had paid for this experience and they deserved to enjoy it fully. I approached her immediately and told her I must have misheard, asking if she had really just instructed her kids to steal my children's oxygen masks. She rudely told me to mind my own business, claiming she had paid good money for the trip. I reminded her that everyone else had paid too and warned her not to let her kids endanger mine. She dismissed me with a snide comment about keeping my brats away from her children. I immediately told the diving instructor about what I'd heard. He assured me he'd keep an eye on the situation, but I wasn't taking any chances. I stayed close to my kids throughout the dive, watching that woman and her children like a hawk. About 15 minutes into the dive, it happened. One of her kids started swimming straight toward my younger one. I saw his hands reaching for my child's mask. Without hesitation, I moved between them and pushed the kid away. Not hard enough to hurt him, just enough to stop him. That's when Karen lost it. Even underwater, I could see her face contort with rage. She swam straight at me, trying to kick me in the stomach. Thanks to my reflexes from years of boxing, I managed to dodge while keeping my kids behind me. The instructors intervened immediately. They signaled for everyone to surface, but Karen wasn't done. As soon as we got on the boat, she came charging at me, screaming hysterically. She was furious that I had pushed her precious baby. When I confronted her about telling her kids to steal my children's oxygen, she yelled back that her kids deserved more time underwater than my stupid brats. She lunged at me, fingernails aimed at my face. Big mistake. Years of muscle memory kicked in. I sidestepped and threw a perfect right hook, not full force, just enough to stop her. She dropped like a sack of potatoes. The boat crew had already called the harbor police. By the time we docked, they were waiting. The diving instructors and other families gave their statements, including how they'd heard her instructing her kids to steal oxygen masks and witnessed her attacking me underwater and on the boat. The police arrested her for attempted endangerment of minors and assault. The diving company pressed additional charges for endangering their equipment and other customers. She ended up with a hefty fine, mandatory anger management classes, and a lifetime ban from all diving operations in the area. Her ex-husband got full custody of the kids after this incident, as this was apparently the last straw in a long series of dangerous stunts she'd pulled with them. We got a full refund and a free diving session the next day, this time without any oxygen-stealing drama. My kids still love scuba diving, though they now joke about keeping their masks Karen-proof. When I met my best friend in high school chemistry class, we bonded over our shared love of true crime documentaries and our mutual hatred of our school's strict dress code. From that point on, we were inseparable. Through college, first jobs, and relationships, we remained constants in each other's lives. When I met my husband 5 years ago, she was the first person I called. When she met her fiance 3 years ago, I was the one who helped her pick out her outfit for their first date. So naturally, when she asked me to be her maid of honor last year, I was overjoyed. I threw myself into the role with everything I had. I wanted her wedding to be perfect because she deserved it. At least that's what I thought at the time. I planned everything meticulously. The bridal shower at an upscale restaurant, I covered it. The weekend bachelorette party at a beachfront resort, I handled all the bookings and most of the costs. The custom decorations she wanted, I ordered them myself. The special bride tribe matching outfits, yep, those too. Several $1,000s later, I had no regrets. My husband and I had to dip into our savings, but he understood how important this was to me. Everything was going smoothly until 2 months ago when I shared my pregnancy news. I was 4 months along and finally feeling confident enough to tell people. When I announced my pregnancy, her congratulations seemed forced and insincere, though I tried to ignore it at the time. Then the weird behavior started. She would have conversations about wedding details with other bridesmaids right in front of me, but wouldn't include me. When I tried to join in, she would quickly cut off the conversation, making excuses about discussing the final dress fittings later. Then came the passive-aggressive comments. She would complain about how hard it was to coordinate when some people were distracted with other things. When I defended myself and assured her of my commitment to the wedding, she just patronizingly dismissed my concerns. Finally, last week she asked to meet for coffee. I thought we were going to discuss final wedding preparations, but I was wrong. She brought up the wedding party situation, and when I asked what she meant, she bluntly told me I was getting too fat. She went on to explain that she had a specific vision for her wedding, and the photos needed to be perfect. According to her, I no longer fit that vision. When I confronted her about whether this was because of my pregnancy, she insisted it was impersonal and revealed she had already asked someone else to take over as maid of honor. I sat there in shock for a moment before pulling out my phone. I pulled up all the receipts I'd carefully saved and placed them on the table. I told her she needed to reimburse me for everything by the end of the week. She became outraged, claiming these expenses were my responsibility as maid of honor. I reminded her that since she had just fired me from that position, those responsibilities were no longer mine. She accused me of being unreasonable and tacky, to which I pointed out that kicking out a pregnant best friend for not fitting an aesthetic was the truly tacky behavior. That's when she really lost it, causing a scene in the coffee shop as she screamed about me trying to ruin her special day. I told her that she could either reimburse me or face legal action. When she tried to call my bluff, I stood my ground. Over the next few days, my phone was flooded with messages. Her fiancé dismissed my concerns, saying it was just money. Her mother tried to blame my reaction on pregnancy hormones, suggesting I should just let it go. Her sister accused me of being selfish and ruining the wedding. I blocked them all. Then I did something better. I posted all our text conversations and the receipts on social media, tagging all our mutual friends and family members. I explained exactly what had happened and why I was no longer in the wedding party. The backlash was swift, but not against me. Turns out most people don't take kindly to someone kicking out their pregnant best friend for being too fat. Several guests canceled their RSVPs. 3 other bridesmaids dropped out. Her venue's social media page got flooded with negative comments about hosting such a superficial bride's wedding. 2 days later, I received a bank transfer for the full amount, along with a lengthy message accusing me of ruining everything. I didn't respond. Instead, I took that money and booked a spa weekend for myself and my husband. The wedding is next month. I heard they had to downsize significantly after losing so many guests. Meanwhile, I'm focusing on preparing for my baby and surrounding myself with people who actually care about me. Back in college, I was just a car-obsessed engineering student who spent weekends working at a local mechanic shop. After graduation, I landed a decent job at an automotive company, but the corporate world felt suffocating. I kept dreaming bigger. It started with a single Porsche 911 I bought at an auction. Instead of just keeping it as a weekend car, I decided to rent it out to cover the payments. The demand was insane. Within 6 months, I had 3 more cars. Fast forward 5 years, and now I'm running one of the biggest exotic rental businesses in the country, offering everything from supercars to yachts and luxury watches. The money's great. I'm clearing about $40,000 to $50,000 in profit every month. But lately, I've been feeling hollow about the whole thing. See, I started this business with this romantic idea of helping real car enthusiasts experience their dreams. You know, the middle-aged dad who's always wanted to drive a Ferrari, or the bride and groom wanting to make their wedding extra special with a classic Rolls-Royce. But that's not how it turned out. Instead, my client list reads like a who's who of social media wannabes and fake it till you make it entrepreneurs. Just last week, this social media guru came in asking for our best Mercedes G-Wagon for his new course promotion. When I told him the G63 AMG would cost $899 per day with a $5,000 security deposit, he didn't even flinch. He then asked about the Patek Philippe watch with diamonds. After I quoted him the additional $1,500 per day for the watch, he just smiled and said it was perfect, explaining that his followers needed to see the lifestyle they could have if they bought his course. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here's a guy renting luxury items to sell a course about achieving luxury lifestyle. Then there's this aspiring rapper who's become a regular. He called asking for the yacht again for a weekend music video shoot. When I quoted him the $3,000 daily rate for the 100-foot yacht, he immediately asked about adding the beachfront mansion with the infinity pool too. I told him it would be $1,000 per night, and he just casually agreed, saying his fans would go crazy when they saw it. But nothing prepared me for what happened last month. This self-proclaimed finance expert who regularly rents our Porsche 911 and gold Rolex $2,500 weekly package decided to do a day in the life video at our luxury mansion. He was recording himself boasting about just wrapping up another $1 million deal and showing off his lifestyle. He was filming himself throwing cash around the pool when one of my staff members found something interesting in the car he returned, an ATM receipt. After withdrawing $1,000 for his money shower video, his available balance was $40. $40! I was about to let it slide like I usually do, but then he posted a video complaining about our service. He whined about the mansion's infinity pool not being heated and complained that he couldn't create content in these conditions, dramatically declaring that his followers deserved better. That's when I decided enough was enough. I posted the ATM receipt on our company's social media, with his account number blurred out of course, along with a compilation of his luxury lifestyle videos shot with our rentals. The post went viral. He immediately demanded that I take down the post, claiming I was ruining his reputation. When I pointed out that his reputation was based on pretending to be a millionaire while having just $40 in his account, he threatened to sue me. I challenged him to go ahead, asking how he planned to sue me for showing proof that he was renting the lifestyle he claimed to own. He didn't sue, obviously. Instead, he deleted his social media accounts and disappeared. He's now working at a car dealership, selling regular cars, not exotics. The whole thing got picked up by several news outlets, and while it was great publicity for my business, it also attracted a different kind of client. Now I'm getting more bookings from genuine enthusiasts who appreciate the cars for what they are, not what they represent on social media. Don't get me wrong, I still rent to the social media crowd. Business is business. But now every time I see someone posing with stacks of cash in front of my cars, I can't help but wonder about their ATM receipt. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.